Hey now. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. That's great, Ken. Just reading through some of the chat here as we get started. Hope everyone is doing well. Ken Davis said, freedom number is a good, very good concept. Found mine a decade or so back and retired at 59 and a half. Still not close to broke. Way to go. Hey, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. Yes, I had COVID. We haven't done one of these in a few weeks. I felt like total garbage. I really felt like I was going to die. There was like 2 or 3 days there where it was miserable. And I was vaccinated, back in July or June. So, still not 100%, but I did get my taste buds back last night. So my wife made this delicious dinner and I was able to taste it. So I said, can I have seconds, please? So no fun. I only can imagine how I would have been if I didn't get vaccinated. Like, who knows, would I have been in the hospital? Who knows? But I had the J&J shot. My wife had the Moderna or the Pfizer, one of the ones that had the double. And she got COVID about a few days earlier than me, and she recovered in like 2.5, 3 days. So she got the double thing. And then I had the single shot, and I was the one that was put on my butt. So I apologize for a little dryness of my voice. Might have to clear my throat a few times. I'll try to hit the cough button. But for the most part, feeling better. Still, I take my dog for a walk in the mornings, and normally, first of all, I'm not one of those people, like when I take a walk, I don't sweat. I mean, maybe that just means I'm not really walking fast enough, but I walk like 3.5 miles, but I don't I'm not a sweater. I'm just not, even when I do like heavy workouts, I'll get like back a little bit, but I'm not like crazy drenched, those people that are just like whole t-shirt is like, I'm just not, I've never been like that. And lately I've been taking the dog for a walk and just like 1.5 miles. I'm coming home and I'm like sweating. So clearly everything's not back to normal yet. I don't recommend it. Like if you're thinking about going out and getting COVID, like you're thinking of going to Target this afternoon, you're like, you know what? I'd like to stick it to the man. I'd like to just go rub my hands on doorknobs, not wear a mask. I want to show them. I wouldn't recommend it. It's very painful. All right. So today, we're going to talk about 10 habits of wealthy investors. This is not an exhaustive list. This is 10. Everything on this list is vital to my success. There are some things that I know that I would be more successful in my life if I did this more often. And we'll hit some of those as well in today's show. I'm about to do an interview later this week on a pod with somebody who doesn't know anything about investing and wants me to sort of bring to the table what are the things that, to get started investing. A lot of what's on this list is going to be in that interview later this week. And some of these things, maybe you're doing, 20% or not even at all. So if there's some things you can glean from today's show that you can add into your repertoire and really focus more on, this could be something you could really tackle for the new year, in 2022. So I really want to zero in on these 2 or 3 things. Take to the next level. All right. So hopefully all the YouTube alerts have gone out now. Tony, no, your question does not have to be a super chat. I'm going to do some content here, though. Okay. And then we will answer some questions in the towards the after show, after the main content here. All right. Welcome in, everyone, to the Real Estate Investing Show. I'm Clayton Morris, longtime real estate investor. I'm founder of the full-service rental real estate company called Morris Invest. We are a company that builds with our team in different locations around the country, multiple brand new construction homes, and place tenants with our property management teams into those properties. Here's an example of one of our new construction properties. And then our clients purchase them from us, and they get a cash flowing rental property fully managed with a great team for years to come. Our goal is not just to sell a house, but to build a long-term relationship with our clients so that they can have a cash flowing property for many, many years to come. So when I got started in my real estate investing journey, there were a few things that I was doing that led to my success. There were a few things I wasn't doing that held me back from explosive success. Today on the show, I want to talk about what it takes to become a successful real estate investor, including, we're going to talk about this, including some of the habits and mindset shifts that are a common theme among wealthy investors. Because the truth is, most top investors did not build their wealth by chance. Successful investing is the result of dedication, planning, and I hate to use this term because it's such a cliche and it's kind of a business term, but paradigm shifts. The reason we constantly make apologies for using this term paradigm shifts is because it's a really great way to describe what it is. You're shifting your paradigm. You know, I grew up with a lot of negative associations with money. And if you continue to live your life where you fear money, you don't think that you're worthy of it, if you constantly focus on the crappy car that you have, the good, incredible car that you've only dreamt of will never come to you because you're constantly focused on the crappy car. You're constantly focused on lack, having nothing, being overweight, being addicted to sugar or whatever it is. You're constantly thinking about it. Switch your paradigm. Amazing things begin to happen. Amazing books have been written about this. Tony Robbins has made an entire career about it and helping people. He's changed thousands of people's lives as a result from shifting a paradigm. Same thing is true of Bob Proctor. I would encourage all of you to dive deep into Bob Proctor's teachings. He's featured in The Secret, but he had a long storied career before he ever made it into The Secret. His teachings are amazing, and his whole focus, one of his biggest focuses in his career, is around paradigm shifts. His teachings on paradigms are amazing. I would encourage all of you to look it up on YouTube, Bob Proctor. And focusing on the big picture, the end goal, that's what we want to talk about today. And all of these things combine into a really, hopefully, useful next 10, 15 minutes of your time. So real estate investing can be a long process. If you get caught in the weeds when little things go wrong, chances are you'll end up giving up. I like to ask new investors if they would be if they'd be hung up on small inconveniences. And so really number one on my list is focusing on this big picture. Before in our pre-show, we had someone mention, the freedom number cheat sheet. And that's an incredibly powerful cheat sheet that we have. The Freedom Number cheat sheet. If you go to morrisinvest.com/freedom, you can download this cheat sheet, which will allow you to figure out how much in monthly expenses you need to live comfortably with your family. And this may even seem somewhat small. Like, to me, that's a pretty big picture. Like seeing the big picture of your life, how much it takes for you to live financially free. And maybe that's not just about finances, but also like, what does your morning look like? A really powerful exercise can be for you to sit down and to look through the things in your life that you want to eliminate and the things that you want to have more of. So you may want to sit down and write out your ideal day. Get your journal out. And there are probably things in your life that you're doing that you just absolutely hate, the drudgery and these small inconveniences that are just like sucking your life. Write down how you want your morning to look. How do you want to be able to spend that morning? You know, I've written down over the years, I want to be able to sit, journal, and have coffee, maybe wake up and do a meditation, do some yoga, take a walk with my dog. Like those are like the basics that I want for my morning. I don't want to drive 2 hours to a job. Absolutely not. And so then what does my lunch look like? What does my afternoon look like? How does my night look? What does my family look like? And overall, what are my finances? So I want to see this big picture. Getting an idea, focusing on the big picture. Real estate investing, of course, can be, like I said, it can be a long process. And if you get caught up in all these little small inconveniences along the way, then you're going to fail. You know, if you had 50 rental properties, I want you to think from the end. Think like, oh my God, what if instead of having 0 rental properties, what if I had 50 rental properties? Would you think of those small little crappy things that are getting in your way in life? Likely you wouldn't. Things like evictions and little extra expenses. It's just part of being in business. Would that bother you? No, I want you to see the big picture, the overall big picture. Don't get caught up in the little what ifs. I always find that the people, the investors that are new and that are just starting out, they always get caught up in like random weird little crap. Do you know what I mean? Like they have no rental properties and they'll say to me, or they'll say to one of my team members, you know, what if there's a tornado? Like, okay, John, you have no rental properties. You're working a 9 to 5 that you hate. You're driving 2 hours to and from work. You've got a child on the way. You've got some money set aside now that you can use for a down payment to bring in and buy a cash flowing rental property for the first time. And you're worried about what if there's a tornado? Like that's really going through your head? There's always something different that you're covering by looking at this little crap. I want you to see the big picture. Focus on the end goal. That's number 1 in my process. Focusing on the end goal of building net worth. Set quarterly goals is step 2 in my process. When you set quarterly goals and you analyze them. Now, I know you're on my email list. If you're on my email list, you'll know how important this is. And if you're not, please sign up by going to morrisinvest.com/email. Okay. Most successful investors and business owners that I know of divide their yearly goals into quarters. Very, very powerful. Then you can break down your year into digestible, tangible steps. Now, Michael Hyatt, I'm a big fan of Michael Hyatt. He has what's known as the Focus Journal. I'm not affiliated with him in any way. He's not a sponsor. I personally love his Focus Journal system. He sends you can order the whole year, so you get 4, or you can order them quarter by quarter. So you start at each quarter, okay? And I like to start at the beginning of the year, January 1st. Get my new Focus Journal. And I want to set at the very beginning of the Focus Journal 10 goals. That's the most that he will allow you to accomplish in that year. 10 big goals for the year. Okay? Now, not all of them are going to be first quarter goals. Not all of them are going to be second quarter goals. Some of them might take you the whole year to accomplish. So you break each of those 10 goals down. Now, you may have 6 on the list. Maybe there's 5. You want to lose a lot of weight. You want to get that master's degree. You want to buy 2 rental properties. Whatever those few goals are, you write them down. And then you break them down by quarter. And then you're going to be breaking them down by little steps. And the reason, weekly, you're going to be checking in inside the Focus Journal. And he even has a website where he walks you through how to use the journals, like when you buy them. So anyway, again, side mention, we'll have a link in the description. If you go to Michael Hyatt or Focus Journal, we'll have a link to it. Okay, Michael Hyatt, Focus Journals, and you can order like 4 all at once. So I do that every year. I order 4 at one time, and I get these really nice bound books. And I sit down at the beginning of the week and I go through them all. And every quarter, I'm creating a new book because most most wealthy people divide these goals into quarters. Again, there's no way, let's say one of your goals is to write a book. That might be like a goal for the whole year. That's a big goal. That's not something you just do in a quarter. It can be if you just buckle down and focus, but probably it's going to be a half year or even a full year goal. And then we got to break it down into quarters and see how you're doing per quarter. Then you can break your year down into digestible, tangible steps. You know, as we get into the fall part of the year, have you thought about what you'd like to accomplish in this last quarter of the year? It's important to set quarterly meetings with yourself. You know, we do this every month. My wife and I, on the first of the month, we have a family meeting. And we look at our finances. We look at our portfolio of properties. We see where we are compared to last month and the month before. We can see what's coming up and what we're tracking. So how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been? It's important to set quarterly meetings with yourself to analyze the progress that you've made and where you want to go. Number 3 on my list, 10 habits of wealthy investors. Number 3 on my list is to track real numbers. Track real numbers. If your goal is simply to build wealth, that's far too vague. If you want to be successful, you need to set goals based on your real numbers and your unique situation. Of course, you can use my Freedom Cheat Sheet. If you go to morrisinvest.com/freedom, you can download our free cheat sheet. It's like 3 pages long, totally free. It'll really help you zero in on your monthly expenses so you're honest with yourself. What does it take for you to run your family every month? How much do you spend on groceries, gas, Netflix, etc.? You know, are you wasting money on stupid crap? How much can you eliminate immediately? And then how do you start to build passive income that can cover those monthly expenses? Because the cheat sheet is there to help you, to guide you. I will say this about real numbers. A friend of mine a number of years ago was in a mastermind group, like a high-level like mastermind group. And I would say mastermind groups can be powerful, and community can be really powerful, which we'll get to in number 4 on my list here. But you'll also notice that a lot of times in some of these groups, there's a lot of like chest beating. I'm good, I'm this, I'm great, I'm this. And there was a lot of discussion about numbers in this one particular group. And it turns out that most people in the room were just full of crap. They were living off of fake numbers. They were telling themselves things that simply weren't true. They started to believe themselves about their numbers. You know, it's the same thing with not ever taking a look at your expenses. You just tell yourself that you only think you spend $200 a month on groceries or whatever it is. I'm just making up numbers. You can tell yourself a whole lot of things to make yourself feel better. But until you actually put pen to paper and get real with your numbers, the same thing is true of a rental portfolio. You know, you might say to yourself, oh, every month I bring in $5,000 in passive income. Do you really? Are there some hidden expenses? Are there some things that are just eating into your profit regularly? Are you paying just way too much for X, Y, and Z expense that you just did not account for? These are times to get honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. These numbers matter. So track real numbers, not fake numbers, not the ones that you pretend are how you run your family. Number 4 on my list, ask for help. Just like we talked about with this community, you know, and masterminds and so forth, having the humility to ask for help is incredibly powerful. You know, there's a joke about men that they just don't ever want to ask for directions. I think that was my dad. My dad just never liked asking for directions. He would just rather just drive by the gas. He would just rather drive an hour out of his way than show the pride of, I guess, asking for directions. I don't know what that was. Me, I was the opposite. I hated wasting time. So if I just didn't know where I was, I just would pull over at the nearest gas station and go in and ask. I never, ever, ever was afraid to ask for help. Successful entrepreneurs ask questions, not because they're ignorant, but because they have a sense of curiosity. Don't be afraid to ask questions about things that you don't yet understand, and learn from people who have knowledge in different areas than you. You know, admit that you don't have all the answers. And then go out there and ask people who do. That's very important. I recall a book that I read by Preet Bharara. Preet Bharara this is a really good book to read. I would encourage all of you to check it out. Preet Bharara was the district attorney in the Southern District of New York, okay? And a very revered position as a prosecutor in New York. He was unceremoniously fired by Trump. You may remember this, okay? I guess, Trump just didn't like him because he was investigating him. Like, their office was looking into the Trump organization and all the fraud and abuse, etc. Anyway, he was just unceremoniously fired. But Preet Bharara wrote a great book about how when he was a young prosecutor, he was in a room in a meeting on a very highly technical computer-related fraud case issue. And he remembered this other prosecutor, I think, told him ahead of time, look, I don't know anything about this technicality with this computer stuff. I don't know what's going on. So, and then he sat down in the meeting and he turned to the guy and he said, I want you to explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Like just pretend like I don't know anything about computers. Just treat me like I'm a 5-year-old, like an empty cup. So just explain this to me. And because he asked the question that way, they were able to uncover some incredibly powerful tools that they could use in their prosecution. And because he had asked it that way, he was he showed incredible humility to ask the question that way. He got incredible answers. And they were able to build an incredibly strong case as a result of it. And the reason he told that story is because he worked with another prosecutor who refused to ever ask questions. He was cocky. He was overly confident. He lost a lot of cases. And he noticed that when he would go into these meetings, he would never ask questions. He would basically monologue and tell other people all the things that he knew instead of listen and get results. People that do all the talking can never learn because they're too busy listening to themselves. Number 5 on my list, build strong relationships with like-minded people. You cannot become successful on your own. That's it. In fact, I think the term self-made millionaire is just a gross misnomer. No one has all the skills and knowledge necessary to become wealthy. So surround yourself with those who have different expertise. From your tax team to your property management team, building strong relationships in business is what will help you become successful. I really can't stand when I would see mainstream media talk about, he's a self-made millionaire. He picked himself up by his bootstraps and did it all himself. No one does it by themselves without any help at all. And even if you think there's no other people in your way, what about all of the taxpayer money and infrastructure that was provided to you to be able to drive on those roads built by other people to get to that meeting that helped you make millions? You're not living in farmland where there's just dirt paths and you have to ride a horse somewhere. Someone built the car that enabled you to drive to become successful. All of these things came together to help you become successful. And so having a great team is incredibly important. Again, Robert Kiyosaki writes about this in his book, More Important Than Money. It's about having a great team. Because you can have you can not have money. Or you can have a lot of money and piss it all away because you don't have a great tax team, don't have a great legal team, don't know how to protect yourself with a trust, all of those things. So it's incredibly important. Next on my list is of the top 10 habits of wealthy investors. Number 6 on my list is loves to learn. So the pursuit of knowledge is a critical part of growing in any area of your life because you're here with me today. I know you believe that to be true. Cultivate a reading habit. Listen to audiobooks or watch YouTube videos. Learn everything you can about self-improvement, business, investing, and more. Carve it out in your day. So maybe it's something you do first thing in the morning. I read a great book on the 5 a.m. club. Waking up at 5 a.m. to meditate, to do some 20 minutes of meditation or prayer or just quiet time to let your mind, set about for the day. 20 minutes of some kind of activity, physical activity, whether it's lifting, running, yoga, stretching, and then 20 minutes of reflection. And that could be reading. Take 20 minutes to if you read 20 minutes a day, you'll power through books like crazy. Make that your time to reflect, to sit down and journal about something that you're working on in business or self-improvement, and take those 20 minutes to take notes and come back. Look forward to that time, that quiet time every morning, or maybe it's in the evening, before bed. But become a lifelong learner. Have an insatiable desire to read and learn, to take courses. Now with things like Skillshare and Masterclass and all sorts of things. I mean, to carve out time to take a 6-hour course on finance or accounting or something, just to better yourself, to understand how things work. Incredibly powerful. Number 7 on my list. An incredible tool is paying attention to the market. Just knowing this afternoon, just understanding what's going on every day in the housing market, stock market, the Federal Reserve, educating yourself about what's happening in those spaces makes you a more informed investor, right? So get an online news subscription. I personally love the Financial Times, ft.com. So it's an international newspaper. I subscribe there. I subscribe to a few because you should never have just one source. And you can see how all of these different news organizations in different parts of the world, kind of craft different narratives. So ft.com. I subscribe to Bloomberg News as well to get different market news and business news. I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. And you can do all that in Apple News or Google News or different sources. However you do it, you can get it all in one of your news aggregators and read it that way. Get an online news subscription. Pay attention to what's going on in the news. Stay up to date with the economy, how it can affect you as an investor. Like this afternoon, the market down hundreds of points. Why? I can tell you why. Because I read about it. Why? Well, number one, Treasury yields are up. And there's positive signs in the economy. And there's signs that the economy is entering a second phase of reopening. So we may face some supply chain disruption. And we may actually face a higher inflation problem than we had anticipated. But treasuries are up. That means, well, hey, that's a safer investment right now. U.S. treasuries are up. That means the market goes down. So these are all important things to look at. What are the interest rates right now? Interest rates are also up today in the mortgage sector. Understanding these things, this helps you become a better investor. Watch my video on 10 things to look for in a rental market. And be sure you're investing in the right cities. This is also incredibly important because those things change. Demographic data changes. So make sure you watch that video. The next thing on my list, number 8 on my list of top 10 habits of wealthy investors, uses leverage wisely. Unlike the federal government, which tends not to use leverage wisely and debt, as they're fighting over this debt ceiling right now. If you use it wisely, you can build enormous wealth. Remember, we are no longer on the gold standard. Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard in the early 1970s. That was the moment that the US dollar lost value, basically. Became worthless in a sense. Became worth air instead of gold. And we switched from a gold-based economy to a debt-based economy. At this point in time, there are a lot of great loans and financing programs available to help you buy performing assets. Keep more of your own money in your pocket. Smart investors use these resources. Low interest rates. But they don't allow themselves to be over-leveraged. That's what happened in 2008. They just never thought the bottom was going to come. So they just took on more and more debt. And then when those assets lost value and they had 5-year, balloon mortgages, guess what? They were in trouble. That's over-leveraged. I've seen it happen time and time again. New investors get too excited, buy too many properties at once, but their numbers are way off whack or out of whack, and they can't make their payments because they thought that they were buying a great property and they overpaid for it and the return on that investment wasn't there. The cash flow wasn't there. They didn't have, and all of those pieces. Again, it's a slow, long process to build wealth. Smart investors use loans, but they do so wisely and sustainably. Number 9 on my list, you need to stay true to your North Star. Stay true to your why. One of the things that we do when you book a call with us at Morris Invest for the first time, you're going to download some materials for free. When you click on the book a call button, you select your time. We're going to send you some PDFs that we want you to have before you get on the phone with us. One of those things is your purpose-driven goals worksheet. So because we want to know when we get on the phone with you, like, what are your goals? Why are you doing this? Why are you becoming an investor in real estate? What is your why? Is it to spend more time with your, aging mother? Is it is it because you have an ailment and it's hard for you to walk anymore or go up and down steps and you don't want to have to commute every day because of your injury? Is it simply that you've worked 40 years and you're sick of it and you want to spend time at home now and enjoy your life? Whatever your why is. And it could be totally unrelated to real estate. Real estate could be a vehicle to allow you to live the life that you want. You want to write the book that you've always wanted. That would free up more time in your life to do that. Why do you want to become an investor? Understand that. If it's just money, then that's a mistake. I'll tell you right now. But if you've got to identify that why, there has to be an underlying reason. Do you want to spend more time with your family? Give back to your community? Take care of a loved one? Once you identify the motives behind your wealth building, how to do it becomes very, very clear. So find your why. Find your why and stay true to it. Write it down. Make it part of your purpose-driven goals. And number 10 on my list, none of the other 9 things matter unless you do number 10 on the list, which is take action. Nothing is going to ever be 100%. Okay? Nothing will ever be 100%. Nothing. I hate to say this. I use this as an example all the time because I know it strikes a lot of nerves. But, you think you found the one that you're going to marry, right? I got news for you. It's never 100%. Never, right? You're lucky if it's 80%. My wife's father likes to say, as long as I'm 80% certain, then I take action. And I love that. I love that. 80%, 70%, I take action. 30% uncertain. I'm just not sure. But that's okay. Because if you wait for 100%, you will never be successful. It'll never happen. Great artists ship. That means that great artists make a painting and they actually put it out to the world. Right? Do you know great artists that were perfectionists 100% of the time? No, you don't. You know why? Because they've never released a painting, so we don't know who the hell they are. Right? So the only reason we know of great painters is because they've just put it out to the world. Take action. Successful investors do not sit around and overanalyze everything. Instead, they dive in. Because what's the worst that could happen? Everything is a learning experience. So let's say you worked with us at Morris Invest and you booked a call with us and you made that down payment and bought a brand new construction rental property in one of the, we build them in the best school districts in the country. We have a whole team in place to make sure that the process is flawless. And you just sit back and that cash flowing property goes into your checking account or your self-directed IRA every month, right? We have a great team. But what happens if there's, a tenant, loses his or her job and has to move out? Okay, that's not perfect. Well, now you're going to have a tenant turnover. It's going to take a few weeks for the property management company to get in there, make sure there's no damage to the property. Probably isn't, but paint, carpet, clean, etc., and get a new tenant in the property. Okay. So then you're out of cash flow for 2-3 weeks while the property management company finds a new tenant. Okay, is that perfect? No. I've had rental properties that had a fire in them. Is that perfect? No, but it's one of many properties I own. No one was injured. The insurance covered the entire renovation and rebuild of the property. So for that amount of time, I was out that cash flow, but fortunately the insurance covered it. It's not 100%, but the point is I took action. I didn't sit back on my hands thinking, oh my God, what if there's a fire? Yeah, what if there's a fire? What if you're in a stock investor and suddenly the stock market goes down 1,000 points? I mean, it's down 500 points today. What happens? That's out of your control. So successful people look at the big picture. They take action. As long as you can mitigate that risk, you're buying assets that are a hedge against inflation, that are for 4,000 years have a track record of success as outpacing inflation and being a way to preserve a family's wealth. That's real estate. That's real estate. And those, my friends, are the 10 habits of wealthy investors. If you have any more you'd love to add to the list, I'd love to hear it. Drop me a comment below and check out all of the resources I mentioned in today's show in the description below. Thank you, everyone. And I'd love to see if anyone has any questions here. Ken Davis says, let's see. Fam Jackson says, hey, I'm dealing with a fire restoration in one of our rentals right now. Yep, see? It's going to happen, right? Knock on wood, I know a lot of people that have never had a fire, but hey, I had one, and it's not the end of the world. Fam Jackson says, my why is to set my wife and myself up to not be poor during retirement. That's a great way to look at it, you know? My why was, I didn't want to have my family relying on a boss. And I watched as my dad, when I was, I think, 12 years old, he lost his job. And he was a high-level meat manager for a company in Reading, Pennsylvania. One of like 3, 4, or 5 like kind of main department heads. So he was in charge of meat distribution for most of the East Coast grocery stores and IGA and all up and down, right? So he was responsible for that. And then he was downsized one Friday. It is, he was too old for the position, I guess. They wanted to either eliminate the position or pay a younger person a lot less money. And so he was downsized. And he thought his life was over. I mean, he was just like distraught on a Friday afternoon, pacing around the kitchen. And I internalized that, And then a number of years later, I was working in the television business. I was in Philadelphia, and I lost my job. They didn't renew my contract. And I went through that same sort of flashback fear of like, oh my God. And so that for me was the turning point. I said, never again. Never again. I got to figure out a way to not be beholden to somebody else. Beholden to somebody else like that. Someone else could set the trajectory of my life just because I was a number on a piece of paper, So that was my why. Hey, Tony, can you send me your question again? Just copy and paste it if you can. It's hard for me to go all the way back. Ken Davis says, I'm not a shill. I don't invest through Morris Invest, but I listen to the real estate advice. I promise it does indeed lead to essentially tax-free income. Thank you, Ken. Fam Jacks. Definitely, Clayton. My short-term why is the same, not to be forced to stay at my 9 to 5. This is a great episode. Thank you. I think, and there's a lot of things, I just go down the list. There's a lot of things in here that I didn't do well enough early on. And there's more I could add to this list for sure. But I would even say things like, Let me see. I would say tracks real numbers. I wasn't very good at that in the beginning until, well, certainly on the financial freedom cheat sheet piece. Like that was a big change for me. Once I did that, everything changed. So I was not good at tracking real numbers. I had no idea how much money I was spending each month. All I knew was I couldn't pay my mortgage. I'm like, where's the money going? I didn't know. I've always been an action taker. That's never been a problem for me. For a lot of people, that's the big one. You know, like my wife, like she admits, she's like, she will always find a way to not do something like that's kind of big and ambitious in that way. She's like, I will always kind of talk myself out of, and that's why we're great together, because I will, I'll sort of push her. I'm like, all right. And it might not work, you know, like, but most of the time it will. There'll be things that we try that just, wish we wouldn't have done that. Okay. And then there are other times when they're huge success and glad we did it. Holy smokes. I can't imagine not having done that. So again, 70, 80% of the time. Let's see. David Donham, how much recurring money to be successful? Priming the pump from Morris Invest. Again, David, I would say that is specific to you. Have you downloaded our cheat sheet? If you go to morrisinvest.com/freedom and grab our cheat sheet, I think this will be, I don't want to sound cliche about it, but it really is. If you go to the website and grab it, you have to understand your numbers, David. So, so by understanding your taking the cheat sheet and going through it, again, it's like 3 or 4 pages, download it, and you'll start to see like, okay, hey, you know, I'm David Donham. My monthly expenses are this. And wow, I could eliminate a few things here and there. And this is what it means for me to live comfortably, you know, and maybe you want to travel, you want to do certain things in a little while, you know, you have things you want to plan, right? So what is that number for you? So it's going to be very specific to you, David. You know, for me, I lived in New Jersey. I had 2 kids at the time, and the third one wasn't even on the way yet. And we were in a very expensive home, a very expensive neighborhood. We were in a very expensive tax county in New Jersey. And the reason I lived there is because I lived outside of New York City because I worked in the television news business and I needed to live close to Manhattan, along a train line, etc. So it was very specific, you know. There's no other way around it, right? Unless I did not want to live in New York City anymore, and it's way too expensive, and not terrible for the kids and everything. So I had, it was very expensive. You know, and so my monthly freedom number was pretty high, probably much higher than other people in other parts of the country. And so all of those things are very specific to you. Tony, here's your question. I want to start a Walmart store. I'm working on building a home. How can we get solar panels from the start? I want to start a Walmart store. I don't know if I understand your question, Tony. You want to like buy a Walmart? Like, I don't know that, like, Walmart's, if I understand your question correctly, Walmart's not a franchise. So I don't think you can just like put in for a franchise of Walmart. Like, maybe I'm misunderstanding your question. You want to start a Walmart store online, Tony says. Can you, again, can you do that? Like, can you use like Walmart's branding and start your own online store? Like, they have their own website. Maybe I'm just totally misunderstanding. But you say, I'm working on building a home. How can I get solar panels from the start? I mean, if you're working with a builder, you know, if you're working with a builder, I would talk right from the beginning about that. Tree cover is going to be important. How much tree cover do you have? Like, we have solar panels here that run this entire show and house. We had those installed, and, you know, depends on the southerly coverage of the house and all of those things. So I would talk to your builder. about how to make sure that that's part of it. You could use like the Tesla solar wall battery so that your house is run off of that as a generator. Yeah, Tony, you can't start maybe you can, unless I don't know anything about Walmart. I mean, unless this is something that Walmart added that I don't know about. You can like are you talking about doing like Amazon FBA, fulfilled by Amazon, like a Walmart fulfilled by? Do they have that? I don't even know. Not sure. I don't know anything about that space. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but it's not my cup of tea at all. Let's see. Frederick had a question. How long does it take to close on one of Morris Invest's properties? Also, can you speak on positive cash flow? Thanks for all you do. Looking forward to connecting with your team. Thank you, Frederick. It depends on what we have available at the time. Nicole, what would you say? I mean, it doesn't take that long to close. We can close in it can be a matter of a few weeks. Just a matter of like when we work with you to get the financing lined up, Frederick, so that we're getting the right loan. That's usually, honestly, it ends up falling back to you. Like, do you have all your paperwork in order? Those sorts of things. And then it can be a pretty quick process. And then can you speak on positive cash flow? Again, I would check out, Frederick, our video that I did on internal rate of return, because I use a real world example of one of our properties so you can see the cash flow. So Frederick, go and check that video out. Pratap, oh, you're closing in November with us? Is that right? So yeah, I mean, it depends on the inventory because we're constantly building new construction properties. So when they come across the finish line, once they're completed, once our property management company gets in there and is able to place a tenant in the property, once that's done, once that's cash flowing and everything is done, then that's when we usually do the transaction because we want everything to be done or right around that process. So it can just depend. Yeah, as Nicole says, it depends on the banks. She's on our team. Nicole says it depends on the banks, depends on property availability. Yeah. But here is that link that we just put up here. It's in the chat, doing the math on rental properties, internal rate of return. Go check that video out. Oh, that's great, Pratap. Your fourth property with us. That's great. Love to hear that. Donna says, how do I connect with your team again? I met them once but wasn't ready yet, but now I would like to reconnect. Donna, no problem. So go head over to our website right here. Just go to morrisinvest.com and see the big book a free call button right there. So again, morrisinvest.com and just click on the old book a call button and a little calendar will pop up. So it'll take you to a calendar that you can pick the time and that works for you. Pick a 30-minute time slot. As Nicole is asking, do you happen to remember the name of the individual you spoke with on our team? If not, it's no big deal, but normally we would have that person just reach out to you and just reconnect with you. Dividend fund. So let me see this question here from Scott. What are your thoughts on utilizing a growth dividend fund to house your cash flow once you have enough to purchase a third investment property? You know, I can't give you financial advice in that way, where to park your money, how to make it grow, etc. That's for financial advisors who rip people off to do, but they have the licensing and then, whatever. Personally, I have my money in some different stable coins and interest-bearing accounts. Like I'm a big fan of Outlet Finance. So if you go to morrisinvest.com/outlet, so you're getting, just by having some cash, let me show you the website here. So they fluctuate this interest rate, but it's basically backed by Ethereum. Staked with Ethereum, but you can do staking in other ways if you want to. But if you go to, this is morrisinvest.com/outlet, morrisinvest.com/outlet. And so it's a savings account alternative. And yes, 6%, but it even goes up to like 9%. And then there's BlockFi. BlockFi also, if you stake your cash with BlockFi, you can get like a 9 or 10%. So just some of that cash on hand that you're going to use for a down payment. That's what I personally use, but I can't suggest one way or the other. I'm sure, and I frankly don't have any growth dividend funds personally, so I can't speak to that. But personally, that's where if I want some cash that I can pull out quickly and make a nice return on it, nice interest rate for a few months, 6 months, a year, this is what I use. I use Outlet, and I use some other stable coins that I put my money into, and then I'm staking that position, and I'm making some interest in the meantime. But a savings account at the bank is garbage. 0.01% if you're lucky. That's just awful. So I would stay away from that kind of stuff. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Thank you, Donna. Pretty appreciate that. Yeah, but Donna, if all else fails, just go to our website and book a call with the team again. And, we have our whole computer system, so we'll be able to figure out that you spoke to Josh or Johnny or Haley on the team. Do any of those names ring a bell? So we have a great team. We have a very close-knit, small team, and they'll take great care of you. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for suffering through with my post-COVID voice here. Yes, if you joined us late, I had COVID like last week or whatever, so it was like 8 days of hell. And yes, I was vaccinated, but so now I'm like Superman. I've got super immunity, but I'm recovering, but still my voice is a little dry. So thank you for suffering through with me. I hope you found this valuable. Again, check out the resources that we have in the show description. Kelly's been kind enough to put a bunch of great links, things I mentioned in today's show. Some of the stuff I'm thinking of off the top of my head. So Kelly's great to be able to find like the Preet Bharara book and some of the other books like the Full Focus Planner and things like that. So as I'm speaking extemporaneously. So thank you for that. So that's all in the show description. Thank you, everyone. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. We do these live shows now that I'm back post-COVID and 10 pounds lighter. We do these shows every Tuesday at noon Eastern time. So join us next week for that. See you next week, everyone. Much love to all of you. Now go out there, take action, become a real estate investor. I believe it's the #1 way to build wealth. We'll see you next time, everyone.